Role of big data, I don't like that phrase, big data. I talked about a petabyte. Mid-tier HANA solutions and costs, yes, low. Black box appliance, no. White boxes, open boxes, not black boxes. Black boxes indicate black holes. There are things that you cannot see. Bad idea. White boxes, open boxes, open certification. We'll talk tomorrow about open HANA hardware certification. So we don't, think about this, if the promise of engineered systems meant that you had to buy a failing hardware company, what kind of an engineered system is that? Think about it. So open certification, open boxes. HANA competitive landscape news. Making previous generation things incrementally better. Did you get that? The potential competitors of HANA are not understanding the point and are making previous generation things incrementally better with like hybrid technologies like PCI Express cards and things like this. Query federation, yes. Top 3 customer concerns. One question that we keep getting asked is about the enterprise readiness and failover and tape backups for people who, for whatever reason, still have tapes and stuff like that. And we have been doing a lot of work on that. Surprisingly, this imagination that I talked about is one of these things. Imagination, the fact that somehow we think about the world as an increment of the past. And instead of thinking about why are we pushing this startup thing so hard? Because these guys are totally unconstrained by what happened before. They are thinking about visualizing stars, for God's sake. I mean, think about it. That is so incredible. So people somehow in the enterprise world are missing the imagination necessary to think about real-time things. And that is one of the things. And part of it is, of course, that there should be communities where people talk about thousands of examples of incredible things that can be done. I had a meeting with the CEO of an airline company, and he talked about how engines now have meters inside them. They have telemetry. And in GE or Rolls-Royce or Pratt & Whitney and these companies actually see what is going on in the engine while a plane is flying. And he was telling me that if you take the flight data recorder and this telemetry data coming from GE or Rolls-Royce or wherever, and the paper-based maintenance records, when people maintain the plane, they actually have to write, by regulation, they are required to write down what is going on in the plane on paper. And he says, now, somebody, an engine manufacturer tells me that this particular flight, the left engine on this plane had an issue and you should not fly this plane before you have resolved this issue. And now you're trying to figure out what does that mean, correlate that with things from the flight data recorder, from the maintenance records of the plane to find out if there is something else that was going on at the same time. And this kind of a problem. So imagination is somehow, and the third one is education. Education. People somehow think that there is some voodoo here in in-memory computing, and actually it is just SQL programming and parallelism, pushing calculations down into the database, things like that. But we set up the HANA Academy. I will announce this tomorrow. The academy.saphana.com. Simple 5-minute video lessons of doing various things with HANA. There are like already more than 100 videos there. So those are the top 3. The integrating into the data center, the lack of imagination, and the education. Future of BW on HANA world? There are more than 16,500 BW systems in the world. They will live for a very long time. If you are doing a new data warehouse from scratch, then you can argue that it can be done entirely in HANA already. If not, there are some things that you don't have in HANA yet, then you need BW or some other data warehouse for that. Conceptually, of course, see, it again comes back to this notion of when do you materialize things? A warehouse is by itself a construct of the velocity of the underlying systems. You can come up with the mathematics on that. It's actually related to the query federation question, that you hold certain things in an intermediate store instead of asking the raw source every time. In HANA, the intermediate store is virtual. You don't see it. It is calculated on the fly, but if HANA thinks that this is not changing fast enough and I can just hold this in my memory, IaaS calls this caching. That's an internal joke. The materialization is a dynamic construct. So warehouses will become virtual, but warehouses will always be necessary. Perhaps virtually, but they will always be necessary because they are simply a construct of how frequently the underlying systems are changing, right? And of course, if you look at BW, just from the perspective of non-disruptive renewal, these systems will be there for a very long time. I guess my point is that one, the business warehouse systems will continue for a very, very long time. Two, if you are doing a new data warehouse scenario, you could arguably do this entirely virtually inside HANA, but you might be some weird cases with currency conversions or time series things which are not there in HANA yet that you do in a BW system or some other data warehouse system. And third, there is no doubt that over time everything will become virtual, just as software is making everything else virtual. Does that make sense? Oh. So this is a very serious question. The principle of non-disruptive innovation argues that no decision is a wrong one. Meaning, so as long as you have the promise, and you have the promise from us that HANA will grow and evolve non-disruptively, no decision that you took, it could be that if you had waited 6 months, you could have taken a better decision, but your decision is not wrong. The choice to go out with a data mart first and then wait to see how things evolve and then do more as things are valuable is entirely up to you. The beauty of HANA is that you can merge the underlying infrastructure. So you could take a bigger cluster and run your data mart and your BW on the same physical instance. So the marginal cost from the infrastructure side of adding more CPUs, more memory, more systems is nearly zero, right? So my point is that, philosophically my point is that the principle of non-disruptive innovation argues that at any point, if you take a decision to move on to something, it will never be a wrong decision. So your decision to go to the HANA data mart 6 months ago was not the wrong decision at all. And now you can bring the next levels, and the next levels does not make the first thing any less relevant or any less important or any less interesting. You can take the BW system, run that on HANA, and as the next phase, you can take a third one, a planning application or ERP or whatever, and run them on the same underlying infrastructure, right? So it is entirely up to you, and I don't think that any decision is a wrong one. And as to the pace of change, you know, the world is moving very rapidly, and we have to be relevant in the ongoing world. But at the same time, the principle of non-disruptive innovation argues that things that we do, I mean, one of the things that we are working on, that Jake here is working on, is to articulate software in a way that is totally timeless. That regardless of the container that you run the software on, that it is, you can read it and understand what it is and so on. So we take this timelessness very seriously, and including the financial decisions that you take about going live with HANA in the past. I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe also in the pricing this is included, that subsequent purchases of HANA cumulatively add up to the previous purchases of HANA. So that curve, the pricing curve, you get a credit towards the previous purchase, something like that. Last. Okay. Thank you very much.